What's good, everybody? Sean Rosenberg in the building. Welcome to the live stream. Well, I always wanted to do this because of hold on. Because since this past weekend we celebrated the well, I didn't celebrate, but this past weekend was a celebration of Jay-Z's Yankee Stadium tour. So I thought it would be right to react to this documentary. Now, this documentary is old. It was created 5 years ago, but this is more like a YouTube type of documentary that's being made. And also, I think it was last week. Last week we had I did a video based on Dame Dash talking about he wants to run the fade with Jay-Z. And you know, because Dame Dash and Jay-Z has been having their issues for so many years. This all stems back to 2004, once Jay-Z and Def Jam at the time Jay-Z sold his shares of Roc-A-Fella Records to Def Jam, and then of course Jay-Z became the president of Def Jam. And to give a deeper backstory of where everything is going wrong between Dame Dash and Jay-Z in today's time, so I thought about doing this documentary. Not doing this documentary, but watching this documentary to give a broader backstory on where everything went wrong with Roc-A-Fella. So I thought this would have been a perfect time to do this. Well, this is going to be a long live stream. This is like a 4-part documentary, which I don't care. I'm not going to really do a lot of talking, so I'm just going to let this play out and play through. I might pause it, maybe just to give a little perspective, but I'm going to try my best. So we're going to treat this like this is a movie night or a watch party, except I want to watch it with y'all. But I do apologize. I'm going to have the volume is going to be very low because of the probably the music, because it might get I don't want to get the live streaming be cut short because of music being background, because of the music being playing. So I decided to lower the volume of the video. So I do apologize in advance, but it's the only way for me to actually get a better understanding. So you might barely hear the audio. I do want to apologize in advance for that. But yeah, we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna treat this like a movie night. As you guys know, I got my food ready, so we're just gonna kick back and relax. I'm not gonna really do a whole bunch of talking. So we're gonna treat this like a movie night. If you not guys notice that the light is so low because as of right now, we're shutting it off because we're gonna treat this like we're in a movie theater, but except I'm doing it through a live stream. So enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and enjoy this. Let's go ahead and enjoy the fun. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn one of my computers off, and we're just going to have some fun. Yeah, we're going to have some fun. So let's go ahead and get into this documentary. So without further ado, let's enjoy the let's enjoy this. Let's get to the documentary and let's enjoy and let's enjoy. So yeah, let's enjoy.
Let's try this, Guru. Yeah. Try to start my day anew.
They must have muted the music, which is understandable.
The ride, put the bomb in my sock so cops can't locate the valve. I ain't freshly dressed, but got a Colgate smile.
Roc-A-Fella Records. There's a difference between teams and dynasties. A team is comprised of individuals that come together for a common goal, but then you have dynasties, which are a team or individual that dominates their profession for an extended length of time. A good way to break this down is to compare this to dynasties in sports. You have the Bulls in the 90s and the Tom Brady era of the Patriots. Both teams were very dominant in their era, and both had a star, which are Tom Brady and MJ. The star of The Rock was Jay-Z, as we all know. The thing the Bulls and the Patriots had were players who were there to win now. People who were ready to take the spotlight at any moment. And then they had young guns, no pun intended. People who they were trying to groom so that one day they could grow and take over the throne. If you're familiar with Roc-A-Fella, then you know who fits in those positions. And then if you don't, then you'll soon find out. The sad thing about dynasties is that unfortunately, almost all of them have to come to an end. No king can rule forever. The good thing though is that the legacy of those dynasties will live on forever through the members of that dynasty and the people who will forever have memories of those glory days. The Rock started because a lot of people passed on Jay-Z and he couldn't get a record deal. Years later, he became one of the biggest stars in the music industry, proving the people who doubted him very, very wrong. Two teams passed on Jordan, and a lot of teams passed on Brady. Before I get more into the video though, I would just like to thank you guys for coming to see this because you guys can be doing a million other things right now, but instead you're here with me and I appreciate that. If you guys like the content, you guys should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. I reply to all the comments and I love going through them and seeing what you guys think. Also, follow my Instagram too. That would be greatly appreciated. You guys can DM me some video ideas or just show me some love, especially for this series. Like, tell me what you guys think about the series. But for real though, I'm going to need you guys to really support this documentary, man. Like, I put a lot, and when I say a lot, I mean a lot of time into research. Like, it's crazy amount of time.
Make sure y'all give them a like
too.
too.
Guys wanted. This truly does take a lot of time to do, like all this research. And a lot of y'all know that I'm in college. So doing all this while going to school full time, it's just mad time consuming. And I do everything by myself. The research, editing, recording, etc. So I'm trying my hardest to give y'all what y'all want. People asked me for a Jay-Z doc, Kanye doc, Beanie doc, etc. And I thought, why not combine them to something they're all tied to, which is Roc-A-Fella. This will be a 3-part series, with the first part being about the rise, the second part being about the peak, and the third part being about the fall. I'm gonna need you guys to show and tell your mama, your kid, side chick, bottom chick, brother, cousins, all that about this doc, man. Like for real, for real. I know that I ask you guys to like and all that on every video, but if there was a video that I really wanted you guys to do that on, it would be this one. Share it especially. I will say that I will try my best to report on different perspectives from all people who were there during the time of the events I'll be reporting on, while at times inputting my opinion. Comment down below your favorite artist or group on The Roc and why. Favorite project, favorite mixtape, what it was like back then, all that. Depending on how well this video does, depends on how fast I'm dropping the part 2 for you guys, and that's the real. Also, represent where you're from in the comment section below. I want to see where y'all are tuning in at, and especially if you're in New York. Definitely represent where you're from. Without further ado, I give you the documentary of Roc-A-Fella. Every dynasty has their start, and Roc-A-Fella is no different. The founders of the label were Dame Dash, Kareem Biggs Burke, and Sean Carter, aka Jay-Z. Both Dame and Biggs were hailing from Harlem in Manhattan, and Jay-Z from Brooklyn. Jay in the late 80s and early 90s was an up-and-coming rapper appearing in Jaz-O's Hawaiian Sophie video and song in 1989. Jaz-O was from the same projects as Jay-Z, which many of us already know is the Marcy Projects. Jaz was a friend and mentor to Jay and was there for a lot of Jay's early career up into their fallout in 2002, which we'll get into in the next episode. Jaz and Jay were in a short-lived group in the mid-80s named High Potent. Here's a clip to the track HP Gets Busy. Now, we all know that I try to stay away from the street stuff and really try to focus on the music. But if you're a fan of Jay-Z, or at least are familiar with his story, or at least familiar with his music, early to the midpoint in his career, a great amount of drug and hustling references can be found. At the time Jay was with Jaz, he had been dabbling in both music and in the drug game. Jaz is quoted as saying, "Truth to be told, we both dabbled, in and out. When bro talk about spending money from 88 on dead presidents, you know 88 was the year." I also can't mention Jay-Z's past in the drug game without mentioning D Haven, who is also from the Marcy Projects. And in Jay's own words from the song December 4th off of his The Black album, where Jay said that D Haven introduced him to the drug game. Him and D Haven would also have a bit of a falling out, but we'll get into that later. Now, we'll get into Dame Dash. And growing up, Dame was nothing short of a hustler himself. At a young age, he swept the floors of barbershops and sold newspapers in order to buy sneakers and shirts as a teenager. He was a young dude, and he even was having more money than some adults. Dame will be a troublemaker, getting kicked out of a lot of schools, and even at one such school, he got expelled for parking in the principal's parking spot. Like, you want to talk about a straight savage? Like, that's crazy. But I'm building this picture because the background of Dame and how he is will play a big role in future episodes. But Dame and Biggs were running around Harlem together, and they would throw these parties. But Dame will ultimately leave Harlem for a little while to get into the music industry. When Dame was gone, he ended up managing hip-hop groups like Future Sound and then Original Flavor, who he eventually got signed to DJ Clark Kent. And he told Dame that he had a guy he wanted him to meet because he was in the streets too, and that guy ended up being Jay-Z. Jay would appear on 2 songs on Original Flavor's sophomore album, including their single Can I Get Open?
You wanna fly style? Jay's about to show it.
Well, can I? It's never a question of how, but when I rip it, will I quit it, forget it? Still I always a point whenever I hit it. Biting's forbidden. Don't do what y'all done it too late. Y'all did it.
Jay and Dame had been cool for a couple years before they decided to partner up for Jay's first single, In My Lifetime. Dame got a $16,000 loan from Biggs and put all that to produce the music video for the song. At the time, Jay had a deal with Payday Records, who released the single In My Lifetime and the B-side to the record, which was the song I Can Get With That. Jay would manage to get out of this deal with Payday Records though. When Jay split with Payday, he ended up getting some money and renting a small office space in downtown New York. Jay is quoted as saying, "I like being away from everybody right now because I can get all my stuff together. Then I can move uptown with all those other dudes when everything's straight. No sense in spending a whole lot of money on office space and moving employees around if your product isn't bringing in any money yet. That's a mistake executives make. I used my money to get this label off of the ground, and that was the right decision." In Big's own words, once a couple of doors got closed and some things couldn't get signed, they brought him in as a partner, and Biggs made them an offer that both Dame and Jay couldn't refuse, and Roc-A-Fella was started. They named it after the world's first billionaire, John D. Rockefeller, and also referenced a famous Brooklyn drug dealer named Roc-A-Fella as well. Jay-Z started recording his debut album in 1994 and didn't finish until early 1996. Throughout the making of the album, he worked with producers like Ski Beats, who was a member of the group Original Flavor, the legendary DJ Premier, Clark King, Jazz O, Irv Gotti, and more. Jay originally wanted to name the album Heir to the Throne, according to Jonathan Mannion, the man who was the photographer for the album and Jay-Z's albums leading up to the Black Album, I believe. In an interview, Mannion said, "Originally, the album was called Heir to the Throne, so I had a whole set of creative for that. But then a couple days later, Jay was like, nah, switch that. We'll let the people decide if I'm the heir. So we're going to call it Reasonable Doubt. If I rise to the occasion, I'm going to be named King by the people." Now, there's a whole story behind the cover art to the album itself and the actual album. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of both in a short amount of time, because trust me, we'll have a lot to talk about. Like, man, we got like 5 more albums to discuss, like, before this episode is over. So yeah, but the story behind the album cover is that a PR person from Roc-A-Fella called Adrian Vargas, who ended up being the art director for the project. Vargas and Mannion were both familiar with Jay due to him being on Jazz's Hawaiian Soul Food and other appearances he had on people's tapes. The first single from the album was Dead Presidents, and it dropped in February of 1996. The original version featured Foxy Brown. When the album was released, there was a different version, which was Dead Presidents 2. This version has the same backing track and chorus, but different lyrics, and doesn't include Foxy. I also have got to mention that Ski Beats made this beat, and the beat along with the song is up there with one of the greatest beats and greatest songs in rap history. In an interview, Vargas said, "The first thing that released from the album was Dead Presidents, so Jay gives me the single cover, which is a blurry and dark photo that shows him in his white Lexus, but you can't see the Lexus because it's shot through the window, and he's on a cell phone. That photo, I don't remember who had taken it, but Jay provided me the image. The person who shot the image was actually the man who was the director for the Dead Presidents video." Ski Beats in an interview gave more background behind the track. "I was at this DJ event, like one of those How Can I Be Down events in Florida. Nas's Illmatic had just came out, and I was just listening to The World Is Yours. I just fell in love with the pianos. Once I felt that vibe, I just went searching for anything with a piano that made me feel like that. Soon as I heard the piano, I was gonna fall in love. I was just digging, and I found that Lonnie Liston Smith joint, A Garden of Peace, and I thought it was fresh. And then I just threw that Nas sample in there just to see if it would work because I liked Nas's voice. I gave it to Jay, and it fit right into the scheme of his album. and what he was talking about. Nas was originally invited to re-rap the chorus for Jay-Z and appear in the track's music video, but he declined. Some view these actions as the foundation of Jay-Z versus Nas, but according to Memphis Bleak, this is not the case. Bleak thinks that he is the cause of the infamous beef, but we'll get into that in the next episode. The second single, Ain't No, came out the next month. Vargas recalls that when that single dropped, it was huge in the clubs. That song was also featured on the Nutty Professor soundtrack, and it featured Foxy Brown and had uncredited vocals by Jazz O, who actually produced the track. The last track I do want to talk about from Reasonable Doubt is Brooklyn's Finest, which features Biggie Smalls. A lot of y'all already know that Jay looked up to Biggie extremely, and there's quite a history about this track. Dame and DJ Clark Kent both have production credits on the song. In an interview with Billboard about the song, Big said, "This is something that we were dying to get done." Dame actually gave Clark Kent the sample for that song. Then, when Biggie and Jay sat at the board, the engineer came and dropped a pad and pen right in between them. Jay looks at it and then he pushes it over to Big. Big looks at it and pushes it back. That's the time that they realized that neither of them wrote lyrics down on paper. Here's a clip of Jay talking about how he doesn't write.
How do you write these things that come so? How do you write these? I mean, not just how do you come up with, how do you write it?
I stopped writing rhymes, like writing them for. I didn't write the whole, none of my albums. Actually, I wrote the second verse to Can I Live in the studio. And everything else was just done. Like, it just done straight off memory. Like, cause when I was growing up, you know, I didn't have it, I was running around so much, I didn't really have time to sit and just write and write. You know, as a youngster, I wrote all the time. I used to be at the table just writing. But then when I start, you know, teenage years, start running around, you know, I had to memorize, write on paper bags, stuff it in my pocket, and then, you know, get home to transfer it to the big book. You know what I mean? And then after a while, you know, doing so much of that, it just come exercise to memorize these lines, because most of these lines were coming to me while I was out on the street.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And after a while, I just got into a habit of just memorizing it until I get to the studio and just putting it down.
So you don't even write these joints down?
Nah, not at all.
Jay actually went in and did everything in 5 minutes. He broke down the song and left all these parts for Big. It was a different type of beat at that time. Biggie was trying to really catch the beat, and when he left, he said, "When I gave you a song to rhyme on for my album, I'm gonna make sure it's a regular beat, so you could do a straight 16, not all this breakdown." Another interesting thing that was said about the song was said by Combat Jack. By the way, RIP Combat Jack. He said, "When I contacted Bad Boy for Big's clearance, Puff couldn't grant us the full single rights. Big had been on almost everybody's records, and Arista didn't want him to be overexposed. I remember being on the phone once again begging for Puff to let Big rock on a single and video, and Puff asking me, 'Yo, what the F is a Jay-Z? I can't get Clive Davis to clear Big on some unknown rapper's record.' To his credit, Puff did let The Roc keep the song on the album. A quick thing before I move on is that V.R.G revealed that the song Brooklyn's Finest started the short-lived beef with Jay and Tupac. Tupac dissed Jay in a few tracks, but Jay would never get the chance to respond because Pac would die in September of 1996. The album Reasonable Doubt, though, was finally independently released in late June of 1996 through a distribution deal with Priority Records. The album was delayed twice due to recording delays. It was initially proposed for an April drop and then a June 14th drop. The album peaked at number 26 on the US Billboard 200 charts and charted for 18 weeks. The album sold 43,000 copies in its first week and 420,000 copies in its first year of release. Although it wasn't a big success right out the gate, the album has definitely gained its fair share of praise. It definitely ended up proving a lot of doubters wrong because before this, record labels thought that Jay-Z wasn't really that good and passed on him. Things weren't all that good though, especially with Priority Records, because Dame, Jay, and Biggs signed with them and thought that they were getting 80% and the label was getting 20%. In all actuality, they got tricked and instead shared 80% of just Jay-Z's piece, which is a very, very small number. Definitely not the deal that they expected. So instead of making $3 or $4 million from the album, according to Biggs, they probably made $30,000 to $40,000 from it. The year is now 1997, and Jay is feeling the buzz of his debut album. As said earlier, the success wasn't all the way there at first, but it kept gradually building and building as time went on. In the spring of 1997, Def Jam would purchase a 50% stake in Roc-A-Fella. Sadly, though, in March of 1997, Biggie Smalls was murdered in Los Angeles. This, along with the death of Tupac nearly a year earlier, really sent shockwaves throughout the world. This had a lot of people hurting, and especially Jay-Z, who really looked up to him. And according to Biggie's mom, she said that Jay was always there for Big. Here's a clip of Jay-Z talking about Big.
I was in the house. Actually, I just got off the phone with him. I was talking to him on the phone, and he was, he just like so happy. He was ecstatic, like, yo, because I was supposed to go out there probably like in 2 days. I was gonna go that day, but I was just moving, and I was just came back from somewhere, and I wanted to be out there. So it was like, oh yeah, Playboy, like just screaming on the phone, music in the background. I was like groggy and tired, like talking on the phone, like, yo, dog, I'll be out there tomorrow, the next day. You know what I mean? Oh, you missing this? It's just like real happy. And then like I hung up the phone, and the phone rang again, like maybe like a half hour behind that. But see, because I spoke to him, like I just spoke to him, I was like, nah, like I immediately dismissed it, like you bugging. He was like, something happened. I'm telling you, son. My man Gotti had called me, so I was like, nah, go make sure, go find out. You know what I mean? I think that's the room I just got finished speaking. So, you know, so and then D-Roc had called like right after that. A little while after that, that's when I was just like, and I was just getting a flood of calls, like, the whole night. So that's when it really was like setting in. I was just still in shock, like, nah, I just can't.
In October, Jay would release the first single for his sophomore album, which was Always Be My Sunshine. This song was an interesting choice for a single, to say that much, or at least a song on the album, period. Everything from the song's lyrics and sound indicated Jay-Z's change from his mafioso rap style to a more mainstream style, which was requested by his new partners at Def Jam. It was basically what people perceive as changing their sound to sell out to the masses. The song wasn't well received by critics and many fans, but Hove did receive regular airplay on MTV, which in the 90s was a big deal in the music industry, unlike today. In an interview with DJ Who Kid, French Montana said that Jay-Z told him that dropping Sunshine was the worst mistake of his career, and he felt like it prevented him from dropping an undisputed classic. In early November of 1997, Jay would release his sophomore album, In My Lifetime, Volume 1, alongside Christian's album, which was released the same day. Christian was the first R&B act on Roc-A-Fella, and the people of Roc-A-Fella thought an R&B act would expand their reach. I ain't gonna lie, I felt like this group really never got their just due, and that Full of Smoke song, fire. I don't care what nobody says. But basically, to make a long story short, the group was an R&B group, but Kenny Ski, one of the group's members, believed that one major reason why they didn't really blow up is because Roc-A-Fella didn't know how to properly promote them. They were promoting them in the same avenues as hip-hop, which obviously didn't work. I'll get more into Christian a little later though. As said earlier, Jay-Z released In My Lifetime Volume 1 in early November of 1997. and it peaked at number 3 on the US Billboard 200 chart, selling 138,000 copies in its first week. This was a significant sales increase after his debut album, and would mark the last time Jay didn't go number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts. A couple songs that I want to talk about from the album are Streets is Watching and Where I'm From. The song Streets is Watching is interesting because it would also appear to be the title track of the soundtrack to the 1998 movie Streets is Watching, which was a film with many of Jay's unreleased music videos, all tied into a storyline. More of this film in just a minute. The producer of the song, which is Ski Beats, once again provides a little insight behind the track. In an interview, he said, Jay couldn't come up with the hook. That's why he took the sample from the guy from Sleepers and threw it in there. He was like, this is dope, but I don't know what kind of hook to add to it. That movie was good, but it was Jay's idea to use it. He's definitely a movie buff. Anything that had that energy of what he was representing. However, the musician behind the sample wouldn't clear the sample without.
I'll be right back, y'all. I apologize. We'll be right back. And we are back. Let's continue.
The promise of censorship. As a result of that, the official versions of the song are censored, even on the explicit versions. What's funny is that Ski Beats said he never even really noticed. Another interesting thing about this song is that it was the first song to be made for the album and the last song Biggie ever heard, according to Jay-Z. Biggie made Jay play it for him over 30 times, and eventually Jay told Biggie to just keep it. The song Where I'm From has a history to it, and one of the producers from the track, Amil, played it for Diddy in a rough form, where there were no sound effects, no extra percussion, and Diddy passed on it. However, one other credited producer for the track, D-Dot, played the beat for Jay and his A&R at the time. Jay heard the rough, sample-heavy cut, was immediately inspired, and began recording 4 lines at a time. D-Dot in an interview recounted the experience by saying, I came to the studio so we could do the vocals together. He was very cool, smooth, laid back about it. He would listen to the track and pace back and forth in the studio. I saw Jay-Z walk back and forth from the booth to the control room. Never once did he pick up a pen to write lyrics. He would memorize 4 lines at a time in his head at one time, go into the booth, knock out the lyric, and then come back to the control room to listen to it. Before you knew it, the record was done. 1998 will be a big year for The Roc, especially with the release of the Streets is Watching film, which released in May of 1998. The soundtrack was also released the same day. The album did well commercially, reaching number 3 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart. And a month before the soundtrack and film were released, the single It's Alright with Jay and Memphis Bleek was released. I think it's a good time in the story to get into who Memphis Bleek is. Memphis Bleek was also from the Marcy Projects and would be one of the first artists to sign to Roc-A-Fella. In an interview with DJ Vlad, Bleek said that he always positioned Jay-Z as a default older brother figure in his life. Jay would visit him and tell him to get out of the streets. When Bleek was in high school, he showed Jay that he could rap by freestyling for him, which earned his respect. Jay took him to a studio where he was recording Reasonable Doubt and handed him a piece of paper with the lyrics to a track called Coming of Age. According to Bleak, within the next couple of hours, he went back to Jay's apartment and said that he remembered the rhymes. Jay's account of this is a little different because he said that he told Bleak that he was making an album and that Bleak had to learn the song in 24 hours. If he didn't learn it, then he wouldn't be on it. Bleak took the paper and would look it over. Jay said that he had written the verse down for him in chicken scratch, which basically means that it was hard to read. He said that Bleak came to him the next day and spit the whole thing, like he'd been doing it his whole life. The track took the form of a dialogue between a street hustler, who was played by Jay, and a person looking to get into the drug game, who's played by Bleak. Jay teaches Bleak how to sell drugs. Although the song was just a start for Bleak, it would unfortunately set the tone for Bleak's career, which we'll discuss more of that later in the series. This song would also see two songs from Christian, which were Pimp This Love and Your Love. Even though this was a good look for them and did bring them a little bit more of attention, it also seemed as the more days that went on, the more the group became an afterthought. Jay-Z was really starting to blow up and become a star, so a lot of focus was being put on him at the time. The group felt like they were being loyal by promoting Roc-A-Fella, which we'll get into in a little bit, and always spoke really positive about The Rock. The group soon grew impatient and resentful. Jay was becoming this big star and doing videos, but they weren't in any of them, and had a lot of songs, but they weren't singing on the hooks. Kenny Ski would soon leave Roc-A-Fella Records, while Allen remained on the label in hopes to release a solo album. In August of 1998, Jay would release the first single for his third album, which the single was Can I Get Up, with Amil and Ja Rule. By the way, Amil's story will be in part 2 if you were wondering. The song, though, would peak at number 19 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and was a smash hit. It would also feature in the hit movie Rush Hour with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan, which also boosted the song as well. At this time, this was one of Jay's biggest hits, but the next single Jay would release would absolutely change his career forever. The next single was Hard Knock Life, Ghetto Anthem, which released in October of that year. This is cited as the moment when Jay officially became a superstar. He had finally put all the puzzle pieces together. At the time of its release, this song was the most commercially successful Jay-Z single. The song would peak at number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, and also was the first single to achieve significant success outside of the United States, peaking within the top 10 of the charts in several countries, including Canada, Germany, and the UK. The song was also nominated for Best Rap Solo Performance at the 41st Grammy Awards in 1999. An interesting fact about the song is that to clear the anti-sample, Jay wrote a letter to the song's copyright holders and told them that he'd seen the musical on Broadway as a child and written a competition-winning essay on it at school. As we all know now, that sample was cleared, and the rest is history. In September of that year, Volume 2 Hard Knock Life would release and would be Jay's first album to go number 1. And ever since then, he hasn't not went number 1. So for the rest of the series, whenever I don't say an album went number 1 from Jay, trust me, it went number 1. With the album sold 350,000 copies in his first week, which topped his last album. Here's a video of Jay talking about the albums.
And I never really wanted to be like just making albums every year. You know what I mean? That wasn't my intent. My intent was to come in here so we can have some place, you know, for myself and my peoples, you know what I mean, so we can work and we can enterprise in a legit manner, you know what I mean, was to have Roc-A-Fella. It wasn't for me to be, you know, Jay-Z an artist. That's why I said that the first album was supposed to be the first and the last. You know what I mean? That was the plan right there. You know, but then, you know, I don't know, we didn't know too much about this whole music thing. We got in there and seen the different things that transpired and things that go on. You can never plan nothing like that in the music business.
Another song that I want to talk about off of this album is Money, Cash, and let's just say thoughts, okay? For this video, Money, Cash, thoughts, okay? What's funny about the song is that the producer of the track, Swizz Beatz, said that the song.
I can understand why he said it that way. It's kind of hilarious. He says "Money, Cash, Thoughts." In reality, the song is called. Let me help you out, Cloud Cocoon. It's called "Money, Cash, Hoes."
Started off as a joke with him sliding his hand across the keyboard. The song was originally meant for Busta Rhymes, and Busta said that he was crazy, but not that crazy for this beat. Like that's crazy.
Whoa, hold on. Like I said in the beginning, I wasn't gonna do a lot of pausing, but that's crazy. I did not know that this song was originally supposed to be a Busta Rhymes song before it got before the song was handed to Jay-Z. I did not know this was a Busta Rhymes song. Yeah. I would have loved to see what Busta would have sounded like on that beat, on the Money Cash Holes beat. I would love to see that. But let's continue.
Swizz played the beat for other rappers, but when he played the beat for Jay, he was very open to it. Also, all the what ad-libs you hear from DMX were actually done live. Fun fact. And Swizz didn't start sampling them until later. A couple months after Volume 2 Hard Knock Life, DJ Clue would release his debut studio album, The Professional. This was a big deal because Clue was very known for his mixtapes in the streets, and there was a lot of DJs at this time doing their thing in the streets. But Clue dropping this album was a big deal because this took it from the streets to the mainstream. It took things to the next level.
Clue, Clue was getting people like you got to figure all the people that Clue broke on his tape. That's now successful recording artists, all got videos and stuff and things out. He broke with just about every major artist right now. Was first heard on the Clue tape. You know what I'm saying? Like he was so important to hip hop and so important to everything that was going on in New York. Like you get a deal off a Clue tape. You kill a Clue tape, right? You know what I mean? You on your way to getting a deal. Like Cannabis, that was his first when he dropped those 150 whatever bars they was on Clue tape. Cameron and DMX, the Get At Me Dog was on Clue. It was it was a freestyle for Clue. That's how that started out. You know what I mean? And it's actually turned out to be, the record that really catapulted him into being a superstar.
A little backstory about Clue is that he was born in Queens, New York. He built his reputation with street level mixtapes and quickly became one of New York's leading DJs who had some of the latest tracks by the biggest rappers at the time. The album featured primarily exclusive tracks which boasted some of New York's top artists such as Nas, Mobb Deep.
Hey, shout out to DJ Clue. DJ Clue is a legend. Shout out to him. But let's continue.
DMX, Big Pun, Jay-Z, Raekwon, Ja Rule, and the list goes on. The album peaked at number 26 on the Billboard 200 charts, and it would attain gold status the month after its release. 1999 will be the last year I cover in this chapter. This will be another big year for Roc-A-Fella, and it's actually the year they started Roc-A-Wear, the clothing brand. I'll play a clip of Jay talking about the start of the brand.
That started like I would make records and I'll talk about like various like clothing brands, on the record. And then I start noticing like people would come to the shows wearing the clothes and things like that. And I know I was selling a lot of clothing for these companies. And I would go to them like, we should work out a deal. I think I'm affecting your business a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you should work with me. We could work together, do some ads and things like that. And they was like turning me away. Like I don't think they understood the amount of clothing I was moving for them. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't doing it. I was just doing it to paint a picture. But at the same time, it was economical for them. And, they wasn't compensating me for it at all. So I was like, maybe I could just start my own thing, start my own clothing line, make it the right fit, just baggy enough for everybody and the right style and just and once that idea started, it was off, man. It was off and running.
Musically, though, the first album to drop on Roc-A-Fella that year was Memphis Bleek's debut album. And the first single for the album, Memphis Bleek Is, was released in June of that year. Bleek has said that the first single was actually meant to be What You Think of That, but he said that that sample wasn't cleared in time to release it. He said that his crew was scrambling to come up with a single, so Bleek called Swizz Beatz and created this track. Once they got
You know the craziest part about that song Memphis Bleak is I don't know if Cloud Cocoon is going to mention it, but this song I heard this song and this sounds like sounds similar to Nas's song off of Nas's third studio album, which is Nas M.I. And Nas has a song called Nas Is Like. So the song does sound, so Memphis Bleak Is sounds similar to Nas's song Nas Is Like at the time. And that was around the time Jay-Z and Nas's beef was starting to slowly heat up. But let's continue. Just a little fun fact.
Jay on the track, What You Think of That? Then the sample was cleared. The album, Coming of Age, would release in August of 1999 and would peak at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 charts. After releasing this album, Bleek would feel the buzz, but he would still be in the shadow of Jay, and the people perceived him as Jay's sidekick. But, I mean, like, debuting in the top 10 with your debut album is still impressive, though. Even though Roc-A-Fella was starting to really make a name for themselves, it almost came to a screeching halt in early December of 1999.
A top rap star is busted.
Jay-Z turned himself in tonight, and the cops started working on his rap sheet, accusing him of a stabbing at a trendy party.
Kimberly Richardson is at Midtown South right now. Kimberly.
Well, Rosanna, just a few hours ago, police here at Midtown South arrested Sean Carter, better known as Jay-Z. The rap star voluntarily turned himself in here at the precinct earlier this evening. Now, Carter is being held here in connection with that stabbing fight that erupted at the Kit Kat Club last night. But just a few moments ago, Carter's attorney had this to say.
In November of 1999, when Q-Tip released his debut album, Amplify.
Of course.
A few days later, after the release of Q-Tip's album, he would celebrate the release with the party in Manhattan
they're gonna explain.
At the Kit Kat Club. Prior to arriving, Jay-Z held his own party and listening event for his upcoming album, Volume 3, Life and Times of Sean Carter. There was a huge problem, though. This upcoming Jay-Z album was scheduled to be released in late December of that year, but a month prior to it being scheduled to be released, it was already in the hands of bootleggers who had already leaked it a month in advance. This flood, a month prior to it being scheduled to being released, caused Jay major anxiety, and he didn't know who to blame. Word begins to get out who may have allegedly had a part in the bootleg and leaking of the album, but for some reason, Jay kept hearing Lance Rivera's name, and allegedly, Jay blacked out with rage, and Lance Rivera was ultimately stabbed. Now,
of course, that's the alleged rumor, because I remember hearing this story too. Now, switching to what happened in today's time, even though, like I said, this is an old documentary that came out 5 years ago, but I wanted to watch this to get a better understanding to where we are with the whole situation with Dame Dash and Jay-Z. So, if you guys don't know, recently Dame Dash just did an interview with The Art of Dialogue, and he said something that kind of got where this whole situation with Jay-Z and Lance Rivera happened. According to many sources, this was the initial rumor that happened, that Jay-Z's, like Clout said, it was alleged over the fact that Jay-Z's album, his fourth studio album at the time, Life and Times of S. Carter, Volume 3, Life and Times of S. Carter, was supposed to be released in late December, but apparently bootleggers and the album ended up allegedly leaking. And of course, people are pointing the finger at Lance and Rivera for basically having something to do, and then that's where, you know, Jay-Z led to the stabbing. But there's another story that kind of relates to the Lance and Rivera situation. According to Dame Dash and even Cameron as well, which I'm pretty sure we're going to get into later on in this documentary, Cameron and Dame Dash quoted that the stabbing at Lance and Rivera was, which allegedly has something to do with Murder Inc., female rapper, and of course the girlfriend of the late great Biggie Smalls, Charlie Baltimore. Allegedly, Lance and Rivera was allegedly messing around with Charlie Baltimore. That's the new narrative. That's the new rumor that's going around with this whole situation. Now, I don't know how true that is, but I don't know how true that both of these alleged rumors to the stabbing, but that's all we know currently out right now. Now, we're going to get back into this documentary. I just want to give y'all a little update of what's going on in between what's happening in this documentary and then what's going on in today's time. But let's get back to the documentary.
There are multiple conspiracies about this night
Right.
stabbing. One theory is that Jay didn't even stab Lance, and the other is that the stabbing was never about records, and instead it was about Charlie Baltimore. Because
Cloud Cancun. Wow. I just talked about that. Let's continue.
Allegedly, Jay was trying to get with Charlie Baltimore, who actually used to be Biggie's girl before he died, and Lance wasn't having it. I'm not here to say which is true and what isn't and all that, but there's multiple sides to every story.
Right.
If you want to hear more about this event, then I suggest you watch my video I did on Cameron and Jay-Z. I'll put the link in the description. Jay-Z was facing 15 years in prison if he hadn't pled guilty. Jay decided to take a plea deal that reduced his 15-year sentence down to 3 years probation.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of all this legal matter, Jay will release Volume 3, Life and Times of Sean Carter, in late December 1999, and sold 462,000 copies in its first week. The sales week was 30% more than the first week sales of Jay's previous album, Volume 2, Hard Knock Life. The first single for the album, Do It Again, Put Your Hands Up, released in mid-December of 1999. The song featured Amil and Benny Siegel. Benny Siegel's story will be in the next episode, I promise. The two songs I want to talk about on this project are Big Pimpin' and Girl's Best Friend. We'll go with Girl's Best Friend first because the story behind Big Pimpin' is just crazy. Girl's Best Friend was the lead single from Martin Lawrence's crime comedy film Blue Streak. And according to an inside source, Jay was given $500,000 for the track by Epic Records, who would produce the film's soundtrack. The track was pretty successful, reaching number 52 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. The real track I want to talk about is Big Pimpin', and it featured UGK, which is comprised of Bun B and Pimp C. Pimp C is one of my favorite rappers of all time, just saying. But the amount
Rest in peace to Pimp C.
of game that he gave and the jewels that he dropped was insane. R.P. Pimp C. The track, though, was produced by Timbaland, and the song is noted as one of the first songs where Southern rap truly broke into the mainstream. But let me tell you though, like the video for that song did not age well. Like I'm telling you, like Dame Dash has since apologized for that video. Like hey, if you're from that era, like you didn't like you know what I'm talking about. But like yo, this man Dame pouring champagne on girls' mouths, like yo, video is wild. Like I said, if you're from that era, you already know about the video. But the track was one of...
Yeah, that is. But to also give y'all a little brief backstory as well on this on the music video for Big Pimpin' as well. This was supposed to be because at the time, like I said, Jay-Z and Nas's beef were brewing, but there was another beef that Jay-Z had brewing as well that was starting to heat up, and that was also the beef with him and Mobb Deep at the time. If you guys don't know, in 1999, the Mobb Deep ended up releasing their I believe their fourth studio album at the time, which is Murder Music. And on one of their singles they dropped was called It's Mine. And in the music video, they decided to do like the luxury island route where the like speedboats and the girls dancing in the background. And Jay-Z saw that, and Jay-Z decided to do the same thing by making his song called Big Pimpin', which is supposed to be which the music video is supposed to be a play on of Mobb Deep and Nas's song Is Mine. You guys check out the music video. Jay-Z decided to, go the same route and try to flex on Mobb Deep and Nas, saying, hey, you guys gonna think y'all gonna do a song with girls and speedboating and islands? Well, watch this. I can actually do it better. So that's what Jay had intended for. And it was kind of hilarious as well. And of course, this song also kind of did not age. This song did not also age well because Jay-Z talked about, because there was a line on Big Pimpin' where Jay-Z was talking about never, like basically he talked about never getting married. Well, that did not age well and then a couple years, and then he started dating Beyonce in the early 2000s, and then of course in late 2000s and 2008, Jay-Z and Beyonce ended up getting married. So yeah, this song did not age well for Jay. That's just how I look at it. But let's continue.
Jay's most successful singles at this time, peaking at number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and spending 20 weeks on the chart. Jay said this about the song: "That was my third single. Took the album to 3 million. Kiambo Hip Hop Joshua was with me in the studio with Timbaland. He knew I was a UGK fan, and he suggested we put them on the record. We called Bun, and then Pimp C was like, them horns, that ish is too fruity. He was concerned with alienating his audience. When Pimp first sent his verse, I didn't get it, but then the genius of his cadence hit me. Back then, MTV's making of the video was really impacting record sales, and I had to have that. I got Hype Williams, and we had all the legendary video vixens. I doubled down at the right time, and it took off. By the way, the Big Pimpin' video, the budget was around like $2 million. The video was shot both in Trinidad and Miami. Jay-Z and Bun B ended up making the flight out to Trinidad and Tobago, but Pimp C refused to leave Houston to shoot the video. Hype Williams, who was the video's director, kept trying to convince.
Little fun fact, I think I don't know if Clout is going to mention this in the documentary, but there's a backstory. The real reason why I believe probably Pimp C did not want it to fly out, or allegedly did not want to do the video, basically due to the fact that at the time Tupac and Jay-Z were beefing before Pac passed away. And I guess Pimp C was cool with Pac at the time. So that was the whole, so that was like a little, I don't know how true that is, but it is a rumor and alleged rumor, which to this day I don't know what to believe or not. But let's continue.
Pimp C to come, but he refused. This forced Jay and the Roc-A-Fella Records team to leave to Trinidad with the high budget video for a massive single that had 0 seconds of Pimp C in it. Man, but Pimp C wanted to shoot the video on his terms, so they shot the video in Miami, and it turned out to be iconic. Pimp C had probably one of the baddest video vixens back in the day, which was Gloria Velez. And he appeared in a mink with no shirt on. He had that clean Mercedes. And even though he purposely gave Jay a few bars, to me, he has one of the best and most impactful verses on the song. Pimp C wanted to rap about the most country things, like sipping lean, how all his cars got leather and wood, all that and more. Jay even had to add a final verse to the song because he felt like people thought that it would have been UGK featuring him. And the short Pimp C verse is also why Bun's verse is longer. This will conclude the episode for today. I'll be working on part 2. But how fast y'all get it depends on how much love I see this episode get. This truly does take a lot of time to do a lot of research. And while y'all know, like I said earlier, I'm in college, so doing all this stuff, like while I'm full time in college, is just bad time consuming. So if y'all made it this far, like I truly love y'all. Like, yo, like from the bottom of my heart, like, you guys are the best. I'm going to need y'all to really support this, man. I wish I could have.
All right, we're going to go ahead and switch gears to episode 2. So let's get it. Like I said, this is going to be a long live stream. So we're in for a movie night. All right, here we go.
Before I get into the video, there were some things I didn't address in the first episode. For one, Tone Hooker of Original Flavor created the name and logo for Roc-A-Fella Records. I also said that Foxy Brown was on Dead Presidents, but that was a pure accident because I was looking at the cover art that has her name on it, but no, she was just on Ain't No with Jay-Z. Also, in 1999, Jay won a Grammy for Best Rap Album that year, even though he didn't attend the show. In 1999, Jay was quoted as saying, "I am boycotting the Grammys because too many major rap artists continue to be overlooked. Rappers deserve more attention from the Grammy committee and from the whole world. If it's got a gun, everybody knows about it. But if we go on a world tour, no one knows." Before I get more into the video, I would first like to thank you guys for coming to see this, because you guys could be doing a million other things right now, but instead, you're here with me, and I appreciate that. If you guys like the content, you guys should like, comment, and subscribe to help the channel grow. I reply to all the comments. I love going through them and seeing what you guys think. Also, follow my Instagram too, of Contact Favorite Mixtape. Also, represent where you're from in the comment section. I want to see where all of you guys are tuning in at. Definitely represent where you're from. Also, check out my pinned comment because I am going to ask what you guys want me to talk about in part 3, just like what I did for part 2. Part 3 will be about the years 2003 and 2004. Also, I felt like it was good to share that I'm expanding the series from 3 parts to 4 due to there just being so much information within what people perceive to be Roc-A-Fella's prime, which was arguably between 2000 and 2004. I think it's better for the series and for me doing that. Without further ado, I give you the documentary of Roc-A-Fella, Part 2, The Rock on Top. The first release on Roc-A-Fella Records in the year 2000 was Beanie Siegel's debut album, The Truth, which dropped in February of that year. Now, let's get into the backstory behind Beans. Beans grew up in Philly and actually got his rap name by combining his childhood nickname Beanie and the name of a South Philly street, which is Siegel Street. When Beanie was young, he would sell Coach leather goods and work as a squeegee man by cleaning the windows of cars that were stuck at busy intersections, and then he would collect money from the drivers. He would also catch his first brush with the law at only the age of 14 years old. And sadly, in Beanie's own words, he said that he feels like he was never really out of the system. Beans got his start in the mixtape scene and would take rap seriously after Beans teamed up with Murder Mill and battled an up-and-coming crew which was named Philly's Most Wanted, which was comprised of Mr. Man and Boo Bonic. Beans and Murder Mill and Philly's Most Wanted would rap over Destiny Child's No 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 Part 2 instrumental, and Philly's Most Wanted was impressed by Beanie. The duo would then persuade Beanie to join them at a meeting with the heads of Roc-A-Fella. At the meeting, Beanie impressed Jay-Z and Dame with his rhyming ability. His material was so raw, straightforward, and vivid. You could feel everything he said to a T. A couple of days after the meeting, Beanie was in a studio session for the song Reservoir Dogs, which is a track that would end up being included on Jay-Z's Volume 2 Hard Knock Life album. In an interview, Beanie said, "Everything was new to me. I had never been in the studio. I never knew how to construct songs. Jay had to teach me how to count music and how to construct a hook." If you've watched the previous episode, you would already know how huge Volume 2 Hard Knock Life was, because it was the album that really pushed Jay into the mainstream. More eyes on the album meant that a lot of people would hear the song Reservoir Dogs, and the buzz around Beanie would grow. He would appear in a few more songs in 1998 and a whole bunch in 1999. Finally, in February of 2000, Beanie dropped his debut album, The Truth, and it sold 155,000 copies in its first week, and it peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200 chart. The first song off of the album, which is titled after the title of the album, and it's one of my favorite songs by Beans ever. This song would also be a good look for an up-and-coming producer at the time, who the world knows today as Kanye West. You see, Kanye was an up-and-coming producer born in Atlanta, but raised in Chicago. Kanye grew an affinity for art and music at an early age. He was selling beats as a teenager, and Kanye's mom would help Kanye with his dreams by paying his studio time. Kanye would meet with producer No ID when he was 14 or 15 and play him a song that he made called Green Eggs and Ham after the famous Dr. Seuss book. Kanye would take the advice No ID gave him, and No ID would mentor Kanye. Kanye would really get his big start in music by getting one of his first big major placements by producing for Jermaine Dupri for his song Turn It Out on his platinum album Life in 1472. He got paid $5,000 for the beat and the song. After this, Kanye would have a meeting with Columbia Records for a record deal, and Kanye believed so much that he would get a record deal that he dropped out of school. More on this when we talk about the college dropout in the next episode. Kanye would go to Columbia Records, and in the meeting, Kanye would make so many bold statements. He was talking about how he was going to be better than Jermaine Dupri, and he would sell more records than him. And the funny thing is that the meeting was with Michael Malden, who is Jermaine Dupri's dad. Like, he was saying all this, saying he was going to be bigger than Jermaine, all this. But little did he know that he was talking to his dad. Like, Kanye been crazy, man. But long story short, obviously, Kanye did not get the deal. And he was really heartbroken over this. But Kanye locked in and really perfected his craft. He would move to New Jersey from Chicago and set up shop. Kanye would shop his music around, and he came to Roc-A-Fella, and Beanie admired his sound to his beats because they were so different. Beanie didn't really care if a producer had a big name or not, and only really cared about creating a new sound. Kanye would play a couple beats for Beanie, and the beat that would end up being the beat for the song The Truth stood out. Beanie liked how grimy it was and how it was just so different. Beanie said that he called Kanye The Truth, and then that ended up being what the record was named. Beanie has also said that he never named his debut album, and the title of The Truth was picked. Love this album, by the way. True classic. Another song on the album that I want to talk about is the second song on the album, which is Who Want That by Beanie Siegel. And this song also had another big production placement by another up and coming producer that you guys might know today as Just Blaze. And just like Kanye, he had an interest in music very early on. Just Blaze got his first big break when he was working at his day job at the time. And an A&R from Roc-A-Fella called him asking to speak to Just Blaze. Just Blaze hung up the phone thinking that it was a prank call. The A&R called back and said that he was serious and that he was looking for Just Blaze. So, Just Blaze jumped at the opportunity because The Rock was looking to construct a production team of people like Just, Kanye, and Rockwilder. Who Want That was one of the first official songs Just Blaze did for Roc-A-Fella. And in an interview for Complex about the song, he said, I had the beat already done and gave it to Kiambo Hip Hop Joshua, who was the A&R for Roc-A-Fella Records at the time. They heard the record and they just went in, did it, and mixed it. I didn't know as many people liked that record as they did until I was out one night and I heard it playing out of 5 cars driving past. In August of that year, the documentary Backstage came out, which chronicled the 1999 Hard Knock Life Tour with acts like Jay-Z, DMX, Method Man, and Redman. This documentary was also produced by Dame Dash. The film featured live performances and gave an in-depth look at what happened backstage. So many moments in this film, such as Dame Dash going off on Kevin Liles for giving Roc-A-Fella artists Def Jam jackets. Bruh, the look on Dame Dash's face when Memphis Bleak was talking about the jacket, like, bro, just had me dying. Like, I'm talking about just pure hatred, man. There was also the cypher with DMX and Jay-Z and footage of their rap battle. Well, at least Jay's part of the rap battle because DMX's wasn't recorded. Now, the question of who won the battle depends on who you ask.
Well, to give a little backstory, if you guys haven't seen, shout out to Rough Riders. They did a documentary called The Rough Riders Chronicle. Wild, which is one of the founders and the leaders of Roc-A-Fella. I mean, not Roc-A-Fella, of Rough Riders at the time. And the battle he's talking about, the battle is the one that Jay-Z and DMX had at the pool hall in Bronx, New York, where Big L was recording. Rest in peace to Big L. So they had their rap battle. Jay's battle, his verse, his freestyle, he ended up going first. And that's the only footage that Jay-Z was battling DMX. But at the time, according to Wall and Dame Dash, Wall from Rough Riders said, you know, at the time he said DMX's lyrics were not like, you know, basically his lyrics wasn't promoted. Like his lyrics wasn't like, you know, wasn't quote unquote what did Wall say? His lyrics wasn't published at the time, so he told Big L, you can't film at the time. And, you know, Dame Dash said, you know, his lyrics wasn't published, so he didn't film DMX. So if you guys see that alleged the battle between DMX and Jay-Z, like I said, Jay-Z's his freestyle battling against DMX was only published, but not DMX. Why said it the best, you know, his lyrics wasn't published, so you can't film or record DMX. So that's to give y'all a little backstory on that. But let's go ahead and continue.
Some people are going to say Jay, and some people are going to say X did. It's very debatable. What's funny is that actually Jay-Z is not a stranger to rap battles, especially back in the day. And he's even battled the likes of Busta Rhymes when he was in high school. Biggie had also attended the same high school too, in Brooklyn, New York. Here's a video of Jay talking about the success of the tour.
How do you, I mean, besides doing a successful tour, it seems like rap artists always have to work triple the amount of time that other artists have to prove a point.
Right. It's that's what it is. It's that, I guess, it's that rebellious music. You know, we always fighting to be heard, and we always, you know, we always defending ourselves. We didn't do it. You know, it's like something's missing. You know who they're coming to see. You know, but you know, that's our job, and we did it.
Yeah. So are you guys gonna try to make this a yearly event?
That would be nice. You know, we just back now, so you know everything is.
You're not trying to get back on the road.
Yeah. Right. So, if you ask me that in 2 more weeks, maybe I have a great answer for you.
The soundtrack for the film was released a month before the film was released. And if you want to know more about this film, then I suggest you go look it up and watch it. The next album that was released on Roc-A-Fella in 2000 was All Money Is Legal by Amil, which was her debut album. In 1997, Amil was in a group called Major Coins, and the group met Jay-Z, who at the time was looking for a woman to provide vocals on his third album, Volume 2, Hard Knock Life. The part for the female was really for her friend, but when Jay asked Amil to freestyle, he liked it. He then decided to put Amil on the song instead. Amil wanted to remain loyal to her friend, but Jay allowed them both to do a version of the song. As we know, Jay went with Amil's version, and that song went on to be Can I Get Up? The group Major Coins would break up, and Amil would embark on a solo career under Roc-A-Fella Records, and she would soon join the 1999 Hard Knock Life tour. The first single for her debut album was released in early July of 2000. The single was the song I Got That. This song is not only notable because it's the first single for the album, but also the first single in which Beyonce performed solo without the other members of Destiny's Child. The second single for the fam was released in late July of 2000, and it featured Memphis Bleek, Jay-Z, and Benny Siegel. First off, that beat is just crack. It's just crazy. That beat crazy. One of my favorite beats from the Roc-A-Fella days, for sure. But the producer for the song Ti-Fi had this to say about the track. That record was made for Jay. That's when Jay and Dame was rocking heavy. They was buying every beat. I was cooking up something for Jay, but they bought it for a meal. I got to lay the beat. Bleak goes in, blacks out. Bean goes in, blacks out. Now I'm up at Def Jam again. Guess who I run into? Jay-Z. He says, you know I had to get on that beat, right? The album All Money Is Legal will peak at number 45 on the US Billboard 200 chart and sell 29,000 copies in its first week. This would definitely not be a good look at all because, for instance, Beanie released his debut album the same year and he did 155,000 copies in his first week, which was 100,000 copies more than her. She flopped pretty hard, and at this point, her future was looking very shaky on the rock. 2 months after that album released, the Dynasty Rock La Familia album was released in October of 2000. The album would peak at number 1 on the Billboard 200 charts, selling 557,000 copies in its first week. The first single for the album was I Just Wanna Love You, Give It To Me, was released in mid-October before the album came out. Here's a video of Jay talking about the switch.
Why switching singles? Like, we were all thinking, like...
What happened was, I got Parking Lot up and running. Incredible hot song. I was all ready to go with it. But the next day I made this song, and it was just a vibe. And it's just the vibe of everyone in the studio, the immediate reaction. People were singing it by the time the second hook came on. And I know right there, those type of songs. I know. I made a couple of them. You know what I'm saying? So I know what type of song this is right here. It's no stopping. I'm unstoppable right now with this song.
I mean, that's saying a lot, because Parking Lot Pimpin' just like hit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can do so much with parking lot pimping too. Bumper stickers, all kind of different things. Like it's just a hit. It's definitely a hit. This one right here is just out of control, just unstoppable. So we
talked about this song a little bit. Like, what's the song that we just like came up with it just like that?
yeah, my man Sparks, he had this hook for a while, and I was looking for a beat for it. I was looking all over. I was calling, a lot of producers telling me, I got a hit. I'm telling you, I got a hit on these, a track to match it. And took me a couple of weeks, but I found the track. Neptunes did it. He got a song out now. He got a song with Mystical right now, and that's I think the #1 rap and crossover song. So he's in a little zone right now. So shout out to Pharrell. You know what I'm saying?
Another song that I want to talk about on this album is the intro track. And I know in my DMX video that you should totally watch, by the way. I said that DMX's intro to his debut album is one of the greatest intros of all time, which, in my opinion, it still is. It still is. But this intro, at least instrumental wise, gives it a run for its money. I'm not even gonna lie. I still love the song. Don't get me wrong. But geez, like the beat to this song is just sick. It's just sick, man. But I really felt like if I was alive during this time, I would have been literally listening and seeing the true rise of a dynasty. Because this beat and the intros of the album is just crazy. The beat for the song was made by Just Blaze. And in an interview, Just Blaze said it took about a year before Jay took notice and started paying attention. Once we did get in the studio, it was like Batman and Robin. That intro is probably the meanest beat on the Dynasty. The fact that I did it and that it was the first thing you heard when you put the CD in, it set the tone perfectly for that album. The last album from Roc-A-Fella that dropped in 2000 was Memphis Bleek's The Understanding, which released in December of 2000. The album would peak at number 16 on the Billboard 200 chart. The first single for the album, My Mind Right, was actually on DJ Clue's Backstage, a Hard Knock Life soundtrack. And the original song, initially at first, wasn't a hit. But when Bleak did the remix with H Moneybags, Jay-Z, and Benny Siegel, when they all hopped on it, the song began to pick up steam for the summer of 2000. The song was most notable for Jay-Z's attack on Harlem World member Mino, who had previously dissed Jay on Dame Grease's I'm That. Bleak was questioned as to why Jay was so ruthless, and Bleak said, because they went at Hov. When you go at the God, he give it to you. I ain't even know who Mino is. Like, literally, he dissed him, then I don't even know who he was. 2000 was also the year Dame Dash would meet singer Aaliyah through his accountant. I'm saying this now for people to know that I'm talking about all the drama with Beyonce, Aaliyah, all that in the last episode, because that's where I plan to go back and reveal a lot of things, because right now I'm talking about the music and some other side events, but in the last episode I'm really going to go back and start covering the drama with things like that, and even like Beanie getting arrested and trial and stuff like that, and what all led up to the breakup of The Rock.
All right, you guys, listen. I thought I was gonna do like the full documentary, but I'm just gonna do this. So I'm gonna split this into two parts. So in this episode, it will be only 1 and 2, part 1 and 2, and I might continue part 3 and 4 tomorrow. Because, like I said, if you guys notice, I tried to stay awake, but I might end up falling asleep. So we're gonna try to get through this episode, and then we'll continue on. Then we'll continue it tomorrow. I do apologize. I thought I was gonna be able to have the energy to watch the full episode, all 4 parts into one live stream, but it's gonna be difficult for that. So we're gonna just do 1 and 2, and then tomorrow we'll do 3 and 4. I do want to apologize in advance, but let's continue.
2001, in my opinion, music-wise, was a very interesting year for The Rock. It started off hot when in January of that year, Jay called up Funkmaster Flex to let him know that he was going to appear on Flex's show later that evening with his new acts. Jay-Z, however, wouldn't rap, but he instructed Flex to get the beats ready. This was going to really be a real test for people like Freeway, Sparks, and Young Chris because they were at this time relatively new on the rock, especially with the song 1900 Hustler off of the Dynasty Roc-A-Fella album being the first real introduction people had to Freeway. In an interview about the opportunity of being on Flex's show at Hot 97, Freeway said, I was ready for it. I spent the entire week beforehand getting my bars ready. My whole mind frame was, this is my platform. This is the first time the world is really going to hear me. Those artists, including Freeway, would proceed to rhyme over different beats for an hour and absolutely kill it while Jay-Z was ad-libbing in the background. Flex said, that was a little unusual for me to have a bunch of unknown rappers freestyle. I probably wouldn't have done it if it weren't for Jay-Z. The first album to drop on The Rock in 2001 was DJ Clue's The Professional 2, which released in February of 2001, and it peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 chart. This was way different from the first tape, The Professional, because it had West Coast and Southern artists on it instead of the predominantly New York artists, so we could start to see a shift in the culture. 2 months after this album came out, though, on April 26th, a young king was born. I'm just saying that now. Yeah. Yeah, that's me. You know, Taurus gang, all that. You know, birthday coming soon. So, you already know how it is. But nah, I'm playing. The second album that dropped in 2001 from The Rock was The Reason by Beanie Siegel, which released in June of that year. The Reason peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200 charts, selling 151,000 copies in its first week. The album spawned 2 singles, which were Mac B and Think It's a Game. The producer behind Mac B is once again Just Blaze, and he had this to say about the track. It's funny because I forget that people really like that record. When I DJ, I never play it, but I was playing a set in DC this past weekend, and I said, let me just see what happens. I was playing a set of my old records, and people went nuts. I forget because when that record came out, I was so in the hole. I mean, like, I was in a hole, a baseline, not really going out anywhere. I was a studio hermit, so a lot of times I would have records out that were rocking, and I had no idea that they were getting played in the clubs or on the radio, or that they were in heavy rotation. I was a robot just doing what I had to do. The other song I want to talk about on this album is Mom's Praying, which featured Southern rap legend Scarface. Once again, this track was produced by Just Blaze and was one of the first records he entirely mixed in Pro Tools. It's also funny because Kanye used the same sample for this song for an unreleased song he did himself. In an interview, Just Blaze said, Kanye West actually called me about the record one day, like, yo, did you use this sample? And he played it for me, and I said, yeah, that's Mom's Praying. He had just written the song and done a beat to it. He was tight because his song was really good. He scrapped it because I had just done it for Beans. I actually heard the song. This year, we would also see a beef brew with Jadakiss and Beanie Siegel. That deserves a video like in itself. Like that beat deserves video in itself. So maybe at a later date, I'll go more in depth with that topic. So if I miss something, yo, I can always do that video. But on Wax in 2001, Jadakiss released his debut album, Kiss the Game Goodbye. On his song, he sent some serious, you know what I mean, serious shots at Beanie Siegel. He was not playing. I've also seen that Rap City Basement video where Beanie and State Property were going at D Block heavy. They was at the top, bro. It was scary. Yo, even like Big Tigger was in the corner, like, and he even looked super scared when Beanie and State Property was rapping.
Yo, hey yo, J-A-D-A, pink of the kiss, no matter how I look at it. Think of a chick, no matter how I switch it up. Think of an act that can't stick to the script, I'ma give him a clip. Styles died on a holiday, kids died on a holiday. Shots like first of the year, on your block like first of the month. You get shot from the front to the rear, got Glocks in the back of the trunk, got punks on the back of the seat, young punks on the back of the street, AKs in their hand. They let the latest movie edit their life. I keep the latest Uzi letting them pipe. That's gangster. I'm in the class all by myself. On the ass all by myself. That's danger. You want a war, nigga? That's what it is. Full metal jackets, dressing. They screaming.
2001 was also the year that Jay rocked Summer Jam when he brought out Michael Jackson. He would also preview the song Takeover, where he took shots at Prodigy of Mobb Deep and infamously put up old pictures of him. Truly a crazy scene. After the show, we got probably one of the most funniest, but at the same time weird clips we got from Roc-A-Fella from this era. Some of y'all know what I'm
And this is, and just like Klaus said, this was one of the most infamous moments in hip hop history. The 2001 Hot 97 Summer Jam, where Jay-Z is the headliner. He did his set, and then towards the end of his set, that's when he previewed the first half of the unreleased diss track, The Takeover. And the first two verses, Jay-Z in the first verse was going at a bunch of people, was going at people that probably that was believing that was trying to have a problem with him. And then of course in the second verse, he goes directly at Prodigy. And, you know, the infamous line where the infamous bars that Jay-Z aimed towards Prodigy when he said, "When I was pushing weight back in 88, you was a ballerina. I got the pictures, I seen you. Drop shook ones, then you changed your demeanor. Well, we don't believe you. You need more people." That bar and those pictures, obviously, I ain't gonna lie, it obviously destroyed and cooked Prodigy. Now, if you guys don't know, I'm pretty sure Cloud is going to mention in his video. And if you guys don't know, those are not ballerina clothes that Prodigy is wearing. Those are pictures of Prodigy dressing like Michael Jackson. As you guys can see, Jay-Z actually brought out Michael Jackson in the actual show. But Prodigy also clarified that these pictures were not taken in 1988. He said that these pictures were taken in 1982. And Prodigy at the time did say I think he was 6 or 8 years old, 6 or 7 or 8 years old when these pictures were taken. And according to Prodigy, the way how Jay-Z got a hold of these pictures is that Prodigy even told a story that his grandmother used to teach at a dance school. And singer Ashanti from Murder Inc. was a part of that was a part of that program as well. According to Prodigy, he said that Ashanti must have his grandmother's picture book and showed it to Irv Gotti, and then when in turn Irv Gotti showed it to Jay-Z. So, but that's being told, that's allegedly told. This is not coming from my words, this is coming from Prodigy's words. So, and also rest in peace to Prodigy. That was his words, not mine. That's according to the statement from the late great Prodigy. But let's continue.
About to talk about what I'm about to play. I don't know if Jay-Z was just tired from all the things that just happened. Because literally, he freaking just brought out Michael Jackson. Like, bro, Michael Jackson, like, at this point, even to the point where he died, was like bigger than life. Like, this dude was like a god.
Oh, yeah. And another fun fact is that Jay-Z brought out Michael Jackson at a hip hop event because that was a moment too, because I don't think anybody in hip hop history has ever brought the King of Pop to a hip hop event as big as Summer Jam. I could be wrong on that, but that's the only information I know when it comes to Michael Jackson. But let's continue. Oh yeah, rest in peace to Michael Jackson as well, the true king of pop.
People fainting when they see him. So he just brought out Michael Jackson. But yeah, but he was just Jay-Z just looking stuck, and Dame Dash and everybody is like screaming around him and stuff like that. Y'all,
I apologize.
just play the clip.
It's live. We the champions. You heard Michael Jackson. We live. King of rap, the king of pop. Holla. Turned out crazy. Big event, 20,000. It's the Rock, you bastards. As always,
You can tell by Jay-Z's face he is so enthused. You can tell by Jay-Z's face. He can see he's so enthused. Like he looking at it like, I'm grateful y'all celebrating, but Jay-Z is like, can you niggas shut the hell up? They're trying to talk to me. You guys are trying to take over this interview. Jay-Z is looking at Dame, Bleak, and everybody in the back that's having a good time. Like I said, Jay is kind of like, bro, can y'all niggas shut up and stop and just stop embarrassing me? Well, Jay's like, oh, go talk to Beans.
We don't do much. We right here. Big celebration as always, man. We don't do much. That's it. It's a wrap. We out here.
In September of 2001, Jay drops his sixth studio album, The Blueprint.
And by the way, this is one of my favorite albums from Jay-Z. Like I said before, if you guys know me in previous videos and previous live streams, I always acknowledge that, you know, Jay may not be one of my favorite rappers, but I am a fan of his music. Now, but if I have to choose a favorite album from Jay-Z, it would be this album right here, The Blueprint. And like I said, this documentary, I'm doing this documentary just almost a week, like the week after Jay-Z did his 3-day Yankee Stadium tour. And then also, this is also me looking back at the history of where things went wrong between Jay-Z and Dame Dash. So it's like I said, the real reason why I'm doing this, watching this documentary, just to get a better understanding of where a lot of things went wrong and where between Dame Dash and Jay-Z. So it's only right to get a backstory on just Roc-A-Fella as a whole. Now, I know this is mainly about the music, but there is some stuff that Cloud is going to explain. But let's continue.
And unfortunately, the same day that he dropped, the 9/11 attacks happened. The Blueprint would sell over 427,000 copies in its opening week, and it peaked at #1.
That's kind of crazy that Jay-Z dropped this album on the same day the whole situation with 9/11 went down. You know, because I don't think this was because I think Jay-Z even announced that, I think he pushed it up early. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was leakage. But according to many sources, including and potentially Jay-Z himself, the initial release date for The Blueprint was supposed to be, I think, September 25th. I think that was the initial release date. I could be wrong. If I look it up, let me see. Let me do a detour real quick. But that's according to what I heard, that the album was supposed to come out on September 25th. Yeah, so I was right. It was supposed to come out by the end of September, but I guess Jay-Z decided to push the release date up to two weeks in advance, so it came out on September 11th. But like I said, the original date was supposed to be September 25th.
The Billboard 200 chart. Here's a video of Jay talking about the album.
We heard that you have 9 songs.
15, y'all late.
15
Yeah. You're slow, man. You got 15 now, and I'm ready for them, yeah.
So, how come you went back so quickly, and how'd you get them done so fast?
What happened was, I usually make an album a year. Since '96, since Reasonable Doubt, I always put out an album. I always have I mean, if you listen to any one of my albums, it's just the emotion and what I felt during that time. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I had a lot going on, so I had a lot to write about. You know, I went in the studio one day, I made 7 songs. That goes to show you like my music is what's going on in my life. You know what I'm saying? So that one day I made 7 songs. And from there it was just like just spilling. Now we up to 15. I don't know, I might make 30.
The first single, Izzo, would be released.
Oh, that's one of my
August,
favorites.
And there is some controversy behind the song. For those who have watched my video on Cameron and Jay-Z, link in the description, you already know the backstory behind the track. 2001 would also be the year that Cameron joined Roc-A-Fella.
Of course, Izzo was one of my favorite records. You know, the chorus, you know, H to the Izzo, V to the is A. That's an iconic chorus. And then shout out to even the sample of that song, which is the Jackson 5 sample. I forgot the name of the song, but this song was also produced by Kanye West as well. Just a little fun fact, or for newer people that is new to Jay-Z. But I'm pretty sure a lot of people that grew up with Jay-Z from the 90s to the early 2000s know about that track. But if you're new to Jay-Z, you will know that this track is one of the most iconic tracks off the Blueprint album.
You know what? I'm gonna just play the clip.
Roc-A-Fella gave the Diplomats a label, and we gave State Property a label. But Cam was moving a little quicker than Beans. I told Beans, I'm gonna make you a vice president. Cam, I'm gonna make you a vice president. But the way a boss does, Cam went to the radio, quick, just when we were discussing it, told the whole world. We hadn't even negotiated it. So now everybody on the label, I'm talking about everybody, is like, what, I gotta ask him for videos now?
They was Dame friends, so I guess the tension between Jay and Dame came. They was trying to get.
Okay, so all right, so here it is. I guess this is where the tensions. This is slowly starting to be the brew of the fallout. This is where the beginning where Jay-Z and Dame Dash's feud slowly started to begin. And I think this is the key factor of where Jay-Z and Dame Dash's relationship started to go wrong, is the fact that Dame Dash decided to take it upon himself, I guess without talking to Jay-Z and Biggs, about making Cameron and Benny Single co-vice presidents of Roc-A-Fella at the time. And remember, this is Dame Dash's doing. Like I said, because usually if Biggs and Jay are the co-founders of Roc-A-Fella, and I believe looking at this now, I think Dame decided to took it upon himself to do a business move. I'm assuming and allegedly without talking to Jay-Z and Biggs about that. I think this is where the problem started beginning between Dame Dash and Jay-Z. But let's continue.
Cam, a vice president position or something like that, and Vito was out of town, so when Vito flew in, he was like, whoa, what's going on? We was cool, like State Property and Dipset got along. We was all coming from the same place, so there wasn't no tension between us.
We always were bosses. Now we on Roc-A-Fella. We like, what do you do?
It was like, nah, Dame like a big brother. We going crazy in this shit. You can't tell us no. Who gonna tell us no? We went dumb in Roc-A-Fella.
There seemed to be friction in the camp. You knew something was going on, but you didn't know the severity of it. You didn't know how bad it was.
Fucking Kanye sells us a few beats. We watching the BET Awards. Jay-Z about to perform his new single, and it gets up there, and it's the beat that we brought from Kanye, which would now be H to the Izzo. So
Basically, I guess Cam originally had the beat and was going to
Oh.
record to it, but next
And I think this is also, now listening and seeing this, I didn't even know that Cameron originally had the H to the Izzo, V to the Izzy beat. I did not know that. Like I said, I'm glad I'm watching this documentary just to give a little backstory. I did not know that the beat was originally supposed to be a Dipset or a Cameron beat before the beat ended up going to Jay-Z. And I think this is also where the beefs begin between, I think this is also where the beefs also started to brew up against Jay-Z and Cameron. Because we got to remember, Jay-Z, I think a lot of people were going at Jay-Z at the time. Because we all know Jay-Z and Nas's beef was starting to catch steam. So is Jay-Z's beef with Mobb Deep. Jay-Z's beef with, I think Jay-Z also had issues with the Terror Squad as well. Of course, Jay-Z also had issues with LL Cool J at the time. And of course, now with Cameron and Dipset, everything's going wrong and that. And of course, Jay-Z also had slowly starting to have a fallout with his mentor, Jaz-O. Well, not in 2001, but it was slowly started to have a fallout in the following year, in the next year of 2002, within the time frame of this documentary. So Jay-Z, quote unquote, had a lot of enemies during this time. But let's continue.
Thing, you know, Jay is performing a song to the beat, and of course, they're ticked off about it. Kanye was even surprised that Jay-Z performed the track at the 2001 BET Awards, because in the interview, Kanye said, I was on the phone with my girl, and she just started screaming, and my two-way pager started blowing up. I was just thinking, dang, that was like the time in the movie 5 Heartbeats when they heard the song on the radio and they start running through the crib. If they ever do a movie about me, that's one of the spots.
I apologize again. I'm trying to stay awake, y'all. I'll be right back. Once again. I apologize for that, y'all. But let's continue.
They're going to have to put in the movie. This song is really going to change my life. Until an artist of Jay-Z's caliber co-signs for you, the industry doesn't believe in your skills. Now they know. Also, I found this quote from G. Robinson, who was the A&R for Roc-A-Fella at the time during the Blueprint. He said, Cameron was working on the track at the time. Our system was really on some new age Motown. We treated it no differently than when Barry Gordy used to have his producers cook up the beat and then he gives it to his writers and then the best song wins in that case. We never had a situation where we earmarked the track for that one artist. The beat CD was the beat CD. It wasn't just a J CD or a Cam CD or a Beanie Siegel CD. Another song that I want to talk about off of the Blueprint is the song Renegade. This is definitely a standout track on the album, and it has an interesting background. Eminem.
Renegade. Renegade, one of my another favorite track off the Blueprint album. Let's continue.
Is the only feature on the Blueprint, and he actually produced the song. Originally, the song was supposed to be a collaboration between Eminem and Royce da 5'9", but obviously, we know that Jay-Z took his place. This song came at an interesting time because a lot of critics were saying that Jay-Z was just rapping about the bling and the jewelry and had forgotten his ghetto roots with his newfound riches. Eminem, on the other hand, was dealing with people saying that he was a negative influence on kids. You also have to look at the title of the song and look up what the definition of a renegade is. By definition, a renegade is a person who deserts and betrays an organization, country, or set of principles. Now that those things are said, things might make a little bit more sense now why the song is titled that and why they rap about the things that they rap about on the song. This song is also of importance because there's a famous argument about this track.
Yeah.
Mainly spearheaded by Nas, claiming that Jay got washed by Eminem.
Right here. Now, for many years, for nearly over 25 years, this has been a topic that people always talked about. Who had the better verse for Renegade? Is it Jay-Z or Eminem? Now, back then, a lot of people, but back around that time in 2001, in the early 2000s, people were saying that M had the better verse, that Eminem actually indeed watched Jay-Z on his own song. But then years later, as time goes on, people are saying Jay-Z's verse actually aged better, aged very well, and very better for Eminem. Now, I'm gonna let y'all debate on that. To me, I still give it to Eminem. Eminem's verse just hits harder way for me till this day. Not to take anything away from Jay-Z. Jay-Z's verse was dope as well, but to me, Eminem's verse still hits harder for me. Now, I would say this. Has Jay-Z's verse has aged better? Yes. But if we're talking about, like, in terms of actual, like, you know, lyrical ability wise and flow wise, M's is still beats Jay-Z by a long shot on this song. And like I said, to me, it's still Eminem to me. I like Eminem's verse. Like I said, I do acknowledge that Jay's verse definitely has aged well and better in today's time, but back then M's had the much harder verse. Until this day, in my opinion, M still has the harder verse. Let's continue.
On his own track. Back in the day, that was a huge no-no, being washed on your own track. If it was your track, you couldn't let no one outshine you. So this was pretty disrespectful for Nas to say at the time. Put in the comments down below who you think had the better verse on Renegade.
Oh yeah, because if you guys don't know, this is around because we got to remember, that's when the beef started escalating between Jay-Z and Nas. And if you guys know, on Nas's diss track towards Jay-Z, on the track Ether, Nas had a bar on there about this situation when Nas said, Eminem murdered you on your own shit. You're a dick riding faggot. That was the bar that really, really set the tone in this debate between Jay-Z and Eminem on their track Renegade.
Speaking of Nas, though, we obviously have to talk about Takeover. As said earlier, Jay-Z performed a rough version of Takeover at Summer Jam earlier in the year, but those parts he rapped about were mainly aimed at Mobb Deep.
Right.
It was like a bait or test. When Takeover dropped, it was on, and the beef with him and Nas was boiling. He name-dropped him in the third verse, and he was just going off. He was making fun of Nas for modeling for Carl Kanai and Willie Esco, calling him a fake thug, admitting that he sampled Nas's voice, but he said that Nas made it a hot line while Jay made it a hot song. And Jay alluding to the fact that he had an affair with the mother of Nas's first child.
Okay, so that was another thing too. And a lot of people try to point everything, including Charlemagne the God, has also pointed it out that Takeover was a way more influential diss track than Ether. To me, I'm going to be honest and keep it real. To me, Takeover was more of a better song than a diss track, in my opinion. Because Jay made it more like mainstream, made the song more mainstream, more popular. But to me, Ether hits way more harder than Takeover. Now, like I said, I do like Takeover. Don't get me wrong. I love Takeover. But the problem is, and a lot of people don't know this and don't point this out and try to make this as facts. The only thing about this diss track is that Jay-Z's third verse that was going at Nas was kind of way more opinionated than facts. I will say this, the only fact that Jay-Z said is just like Clout said it. He had an affair with Nas's baby mama, which is Carmen Bryant. That was the only factual thing. The other things that he said about Nas when he talks about Nas wearing out swagged out clothes, that's more of an opinion. Also, the sampling, when Jay-Z said, yeah, I sampled your voice, you was using it wrong. You made it a hot line. I made it a hot song. Okay, that's more of opinionated. But there was also another line that Jay said, and you didn't even get, you didn't get a coin. I think he said, hold up. I forgot what Jay-Z said. I gotta look. Let's do it. I'm gonna do another detour again. I do apologize. Okay, we're gonna look up the lyrics real quick. Where's the line? Yeah, right here. And you ain't get a coin, nigga. You was getting fucked in. I know who I paid. God, Searchlight Publishing. But then, like 20 years later, MC Search, who owns Searchlight Publishing, actually came out, actually confirmed that Jay-Z, MC Search ended up denying, saying that he didn't own Nas's publishing, and came out and said that Nas owns Jay-Z's publishing for for the Dead President song off of Jay-Z's debut album Reasonable Doubt. So the fact that MC Serch, but around that time it was already too late because people believed that Serch already owned the publishing rights to Nas's catalog. And I will say this, if Serch would have came out like maybe 2 or 3 years later and talked about this, that right there would have definitely took the momentum from Jay-Z away. And the fact that Serch kind of waited almost 2 years, over 20 years later to finally speak out on this was just, I think it was just wrong timing. But like I said, this was kind of more, in my opinion, this is more kind of like opinionated than fact. That's how I look at it. That's just my opinion. You guys can say what y'all want to say in the chat or in the comments down below, but this is more my opinion. But let's continue.
Which Jay-Z did. Yikes. Nas would officially respond to the takeover on Jay-Z's birthday, which is December 4th. The track that we all know today is Ether. And I think Ether was actually floating around earlier due to DJ K Slade before it was officially released. There were 3 versions of Ether. Of course, we have the version we have today, and then there was a version that was deemed too soft, and then a version that was deemed too hard, which is the one with the Aaliyah line and Nas going at Dame Dash saying that it should have been him in the plane, and yeah.
Okay, and that was I definitely heard this story on another documentary, on the Jay-Z versus Nas beef documentary. Nas had the original version of Ether, which is the second version before we hear the current version we got right now with the Ron Brown's beat that Steve Style at the time that gave to Nas. The second beat was the second original Ether diss track was produced by Swiss Beats. And of course, Large Professor, which is one of Nas's engineer, actually talked about that too, about the Aaliyah and Dame Dash line where, you know, Nas said Dame Dash, plane crash, sorry Aaliyah, it should have never been you, it should have been Dame J or Dame Dash. That was the rumor line. Nas ended up taking those bars out because, you know, Aaliyah ended up passing away the same year, that year as well, in 2001, due to a plane crash. So Nas was getting a lot of backlash at the time for that bar particular. And I think I also heard the story too that Nas actually allegedly performed the original version. Well, not the actual original version, but the bars from the original version at a nightclub in Rochester, New York. But Nas declined. But that was more like the original version. He never said it was Ether, but the crowd wanted him to say something. And Nas got a lot of backlash, and he kind of felt, and then he wished he could have taken that back of what he said about Aaliyah. But let's continue.
I'm pretty sure you guys would know the rest. I've seen people argue about which is better, Takeover or Ether. But in my opinion, I feel like Ether is better. I've heard people say Takeover is the better song or whatever.
That's what I just said. Cloud, we are here. I just said that. I just said that to me, Takeover was the better song, but Ether was the better diss record, and Takeover was just more of a better song because because the song was more mainstream and not really like a underground type diss track. But like I said, Jay-Z's bars on the third verse of Takeover was more opinionated than fact. Like I said, the only one factual thing on Jay-Z's verse was towards the end when Jay-Z basically said, what basically confirmed that that he had an affair with Nas's baby mama, Carmen Bryan, which they have a daughter together, a daughter together. Nas and Carmen Bryan at the time. But let's continue.
Either is the better diss or all that stuff. But all in all, what do you guys say when someone gets beat and whatever? They don't say that they got tickled. They say that they got ether. We all say that you got ether. Nas was waking on ether, in my opinion. And Jay-Z would reply a couple times, I think, but it just wasn't enough to just beat ether. Ether was just ether. It was just ether. But put down in the comments.
And that's the thing. And after Ether came out, Nas even talked about this too. Nas said that Jay-Z responded with with a song and then 2 freestyles. Now, there was a song called alleged song called People Talking, which was the first response that kind of went under the radar that a lot of people don't talk about. And this was off Jay-Z's project, which is the what's the name of the project? The Unplug, Jay-Z's Unplug MTV album that came out the same day as Nas's 5th studio album, Stillmatic, came out. And there was a song called People Talking that no one mentioned about. And the bars that, and I'm gonna read some of the bars right here because I pulled up the lyrics. The bars that that was going after Jay-Z, going after Nas, when Jay said, "Breeding in privilege, don't you know? When you defeated, won't you though throw it in the towel? I'm better with vows. I'm a man with principle, damn near principle. Take you off the planet, damn it, man. This gift from God. This ain't hesitant in your arm, too short to box. Plus we knuckle up and off. Plus we knuckle up unthwarted." Yeah. That was Jay-Z's that was the first response, and then Jay-Z responded. That was Jay-Z's first response, and then he released 2 freestyles. And so Jay-Z had a song called the first freestyle. And then Jay-Z had another freestyle that he did as well called Don't You Know. And this was off the Paid in Full soundtrack. Hold on, y'all. I apologize. I'm gonna try to find the original version. Okay, so I found the original version to Don't You Know. And then it was the third verse where Nas said, and this was the freestyle version, that a lot of that Nas and a lot of people said this was one of the weakest responses from Jay-Z. And I'm gonna read y'all a little bit of the unreleased verse of this track. You know, the third verse when he said, Must I dust this fuck Nas and fuck off confident? Will he be content? Because does this fuck guy think he is Pac because the tattoos he got and the video shots are fuck nah? What lies ahead of your past, your whole life entire? We rhyme with shunt gun in your blast. Send you back to the essence. For getting fresh with your father. Really, you shouldn't got Hova's son cross your belly. Now tell me how you ready, Law. So a lot of people termed it as this is one of Jay-Z's more weaker tracks. And then, of course, we all know Jay-Z's third and final response to Ether was supposed to be what a lot of people say that this is really one of Jay-Z's worst diss tracks, and that track is super ugly. But we're not going to break down the lyrics. I just want to break down the first two lyrics. But let's continue. I don't want to make this a long rant.
Which one is better, Takeover or Ether? One thing I want to talk about in 2001 that happened in Roc-A-Fella is that I know that MOP was on The Rock. I couldn't find like an exact date when they were messing with The Rock, but I do know that they had been recording a project that was going to be titled Ghetto Warfare between 2001 and 2003. The project would be shelved and it eventually released in 2006. The last release on Roc-A-Fella in 2001 was the Jay-Z Unplugged album that contained some of Jay's past songs with live instruments that were performed by The Roots. The album was recorded during the taping of the MTV Unplugged 2.0 episode in November of 2001. 2002 was another year on top for The Rock, but this year they really were targeting getting into the film industry with 3 movie releases in the same year: State Property, Paper Soldiers, and Paid in Full. Paid in Full is one of my favorite movies ever, but we'll get into that in a bit. The State Property movie came out in mid-January of 2002, and it would star members of State Property, Dame Dash, and Memphis Bleak. The film also had cameos from Jay-Z, Amil, DJ Clue, etc. Jay just cracks me up because like he seems like he didn't even like want to be in the movie like during his parts, but like man, it's just so funny. But definitely go out and check that movie if you have.
Yeah, that is true. And then there was even time where Jay-Z was even Jay-Z himself, I think he even told the story he didn't want to tackle acting in his career. He wanted to strictly do music and focus more on business at the time. There was even reports that Jay-Z was initially was supposed to start in the movie Belly. I think he was supposed to have DMX's role, but he turned it down, and then DMX ended up getting that role. Just a little backstory on that. So on that a little bit as well. But let's continue.
Seen it because I'm not really like trying to like break down the whole movie. We can just see it for free on Pluto TV. Like, so yeah, all that. Pluto TV, Tubi TV, all that. The movie was a success though, because it had a budget of about $600,000 and it made over $2 million in the box office. If you guys don't know about movies, basically, in order to be deemed a success in movies, you have to make back your budget and then double it essentially. The soundtrack for the film will come out over a week later and was the group's debut album. State Property was comprised of different artists from Philly. You had Beanie Siegel, Freeway, Oschino, Emilio Sparks, the Young Guns, and if my memory serves me correct, I don't think that Petey Crack came in until a little later in the fold, because he wasn't on the debut album or in the movie, I don't think. Someone let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, Beanie was from South Philly, Chris and Neef are from Nicetown, Uptown, Sparks and Oschino are from West Philly, and Freeway and Petey Crack are from North Philly. According to Oschino, prior to Hot 97, the members didn't really know each other all like that. But Jay was scouting talent from Philly, and all of them just so happened to be from Philly, and he liked how they sounded. On a side note, what's interesting is that I believe before State Property became a thing, Jay was scouting talent out in Philly. He was actually interested in the group Major Figures, who were making some real big noise back in the day. They were supposed to be the original Philly group on The Rock. A lot of people can recognize one member today in particular, which is Gilly the Kid. Many in the group, Major Figures, were uncertain about their future, and there was some impatience amongst the members in the group that led to everyone getting different solo deals with other labels. The State Property debut album will be led by the single Rock the Mic, which had Freeway and Beanie Siegel on it. Fire track, by the way, as it reached number 55 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. Just Blaze actually made the beat in 5 minutes, and Emilio Sparks was originally supposed to be on the original version, according to Just Blaze. There was a Rock the Mic remix that I don't know personally if it ever came out, but I guess that it had everybody from State Property on it and Jay-Z. Everybody spat 8-bar verses, and then Jay dropped a 16 at the end. I don't know personally, like I said, if it ever came out, but I did see Just Blaze talk about it. The second release on The Rock was the Best of Both Worlds album.
I didn't know.
With
Hold
R.
on.
Kelly and Jay-Z.
I did not know that happened either because there was the original version of the remix of that and then we know the current remix that's already out now that featured the St. Lunatics member, which is Nelly and Murphy Lee with Beanie Siegel and Freeway.
Which released in March of 2002. The album was announced via a star-studded press conference, and here's a clip from that press conference.
How did you guys come up with the idea to this project together?
I just say like, we had the Fiesta remix and Not Guilty, and doing that and hearing how those 2 singles came out. We would always toss the idea back and forth, but it was just an idea. Like, we do a whole album together. And we creative people, so creative people create. Just the idea of having a whole album with myself and R. Kelly was just see how it would come out. It was just an amazing prospect. So we just put it together, man. We started coming up, and here we are.
It's like mad scientists, in the basement. It's like mad scientists in the basement. You know what I'm saying? Jay.
Also at this time, like I said, the best of both worlds was Jay-Z and R. Kelly's album at the time. But around this time, Jay-Z kind of got some backlash for doing this collab album with R. Kelly, and Nas was one of the people that called Jay-Z out for working with R. Kelly because around that time in the early 2000s, I'm not going to speak on this, but not going to really speak on this a whole lot on YouTube because due to YouTube guidelines, I can't say certain things, but R. Kelly, there was a videotape. I'm not going to really deep dive into it. Let's just say R. Kelly was being accused of messing around with a young girl, with a teen girl, which I don't want to get too deep into it, but that was going on, and Jay-Z at the time was getting a lot of backlash for working with R. Kelly because of the situation that R. Kelly's dealing with. At that time, he was, the stuff that R. Kelly was doing. But yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that. So that's just, and I think that was kind of like bad timing. And I'm pretty sure Jay-Z himself kind of, maybe, I don't know if he regrets it now, but I don't know. But I don't want to get too deep in that. Let's continue.
It's real creative. I'm real creative. And it's like, you want to get together and mix potions, you know what I'm saying, just to see what happens. That's how the lights were created, the piano and
and cameras. You know what I'm saying? That's how this
Lot of
happened. You know what I'm
cameras.
saying? Somebody got together and, and said, let's see how this works. Let's see how that works. And that's how great things happen.
The Best of Both Worlds peaked at number 2 on the US Billboard 200 chart, selling 223,000 copies in its first week. The album's release was tainted by the R. Kelly underage accusations.
Right.
No videos were
Right.
released from the project due to this, and a planned tour was scrapped due to the poor publicity surrounding R. Kelly. The
Right.
project would lead to generally mixed reviews from critics, and honestly, the parts of the albums that I've heard aren't bad, but the third release from The Roc was Cameron's Come Home With Me in May of 2002. The album would peak at number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart and sold 226,000 copies in its first week. The first single for the album was Oh Boy. The beat for Oh Boy was originally supposed to be for Jay-Z, and this is what the producer for the track, Just Blaze, had to say about that. In an interview, he said, "There was drama about the song being Jay's originally, and that they stole Jay's beat or whatever. It totally wasn't like that. Originally, the beat was much faster. It was made as an up-tempo record for Bleak, but he turned it down. I reworked it and slowed it down, but he still wasn't really feeling it. Jay walked in and heard it and was like, yo, that's serious. But he wasn't working on the album at the time. He had just finished Blueprint 2, so he was like, hold that for me. There was a million beats like that. Jay said the same thing about Pump It Up. Sometimes he'll hear a beat and like it, but he won't like it a year later when he's making an album. Jay was originally supposed to be on the Old Boy remix, but Cameron deleted his verse. Joel Santana, a member of Dipset and close friend of Cameron, in an interview said this: "We walked in the studio and Jay said, I got a surprise for y'all. At this point, we was wondering why he didn't want to jump on records that he could have jumped on already. So Old Boy is already out of this world, getting probably like 10,000 spins. So we walk up in the studio room and we're like, what's the surprise?"
I guess this is Cameron's way of getting back at Jay-Z. Because if you guys remember earlier in the video, Jay-Z ended up stealing the beat for H to the is O, V to the is A from Cameron and Dipset. So I think this is Cameron's way of getting back at Jay for stealing his beat. Which I'm gonna keep it a ledge. But yeah, but let's continue.
Young Guru pulls up Oh Boy with the J verse on it. On top of the J verse, he's dissing Nas. Cam made Guru erase the verse to the point where Cam told Guru, you better erase that. I don't ever want to hear that. You'll also notice that in a lot of music videos throughout this period, you'll see a lot of Roc-A-Wear and things of that nature. But you will also see the Roc promote things like Armadillo Vodka, which was a lesser known Scottish vodka brand. It was heavily advertised with things dealing with the Roc, and the Roc was really getting their hands in a lot of different ventures, like I've stated: clothing, movies, music, alcohol, etc. Really out here hustling. Back to Cameron though. Another record that I want to talk about from Come Home With Me is Welcome to New York City, which featured Jay-Z. In an interview, Just Blaze shed light behind the track. He said, they've been wanting to get Jay on a record because up until this point, Jay hadn't done anything. Cam came into the room like, yo, I got him. I think he's going to do it. He was going around saying it. Obviously, it's funny because of how the history ended up between them. Cam was genuinely excited that Jay was going to be on that record. He was like, he's agreed to do it. He said he'll do it today. He just needs the beat. I need a beat. I played a beat I was making for Freeway. And I was like, what about this? He was like, yeah, that could be it. I went into the hook really quick and sang the Welcome to New York City part, and that was that. Crazy to think that a lot of Roc-A-Fella songs could have been different due to who they originally were supposed to be for. Imagine Freeway on that Welcome to New York beat. God, like Welcome to Philly? Yo, that would have been crazy. The last track that I want to talk about on this is the Roc Just Fire. And it's a really great song. Fire beat, crazy beat. But this song actually marks the beginning of the downfall for Just Blaze and Dame Dash's relationship. Because Dame wanted to take Bleak off of the record. Dame wanted to take him off because his claim was that, in Just Blaze's words, quote unquote, we need to position Bleak as a young LL because the ladies love him so much. We don't need him to be on this record talking reckless or whatever. Because we need to position him as the ladies' man. How do y'all feel about this? Was Bleak really the ladies' man? I mean, like, personally, like, I don't really know. But, like, yeah. Just Blaze with
Yeah, I think Dame was kind of going way over his head with this one. Yeah, no disrespect to Memphis Bleak. You know, if ladies love him, they love him. But to try to push Bleak as the Roc-A-Fella's version of LL Cool J, I think that was not a smart idea. And like I said, this is also probably another reason why the brewing between Jay-Z and Dame Dash's relationship started to fall apart. Is I think Dame is trying to push certain artists to be certain artists, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys on Roc-A-Fella at the time probably disagreed. They just wanted to be more themselves. That's how I'm looking at it. But let's continue.
Disagree with that and what Dame said, and bring up the fact that LL did records like I Shot Ya, I'm Bad, Can't Live Without My Radio, etc. And Just Blaze even asked Dame why was he commenting on music if he was a business dude. Like, that's just funny. This is a funny statement. But also in June of 2002, the movie Paper Soldiers will come out. It was directed by Dame Dash and it starred Beanie Siegel, Kevin Hart, and Stacey Dash. This was actually Kevin Hart's first movie, if I'm not mistaken. In November of 2002, Jay-Z released The Blueprint 2, The Gift and the Curse. The album peaked at #1 with first week sales of 545,000 units. The purpose of the album is to explore both the positives and the negatives of the life, as well as a career.
And this is the only album where Jay-Z released a double disc album.
As a hip-hop superstar. Truly a gift and a curse. The album was in double disc format and was the idea of Young Guru, who viewed it as Jay's opportunity to join the likes of Biggie and Tupac in releasing critically acclaimed and commercially successful double albums. The first single for the album, 03 Bonnie and Clyde, was released in October of that year. This was the first musical collaboration between Jay and Beyonce. And due to the track's content, it was the first indication of Jay and Beyonce's romantic status, which spawned rumors. Tension arose during the conception of 03 Bonnie and Clyde over the sampling of Me and My Girlfriend by Tupac. Tina Davis, who was an A&R at Def Jam in 2003, said, "We only had one day to clear the Tupac sample that was used. We were back and forth with a Afeni Shakur all day until we got the clearance, and then it's a hit." Biggs has came out and said that this was the first time he realized that Jay was in love with Beyonce. Biggs said, when Jay first met Beyonce, Dame was like, "You should wife her. She's the one." There was a time in Paris when they sent us Bonnie and Clyde. It was the final cut. And when we heard that, Dame looked up at me and said, "Yo, he's in love." So if y'all know Jay, a lot of times everything comes out in his music. When he does interviews, he's a little bit more reluctant to speak about certain things, but it always comes out in his albums. So at that time, when Bonnie and Clyde came out, we knew that he was in love with Beyonce. The second single was Hovey Baby, which was officially sent to the radio on the same day the album was released worldwide. But Jay had previously released the track to mixtape DJs a month earlier in October to get the record out on the streets. Just Blaze sampled a live version of TLC's Diggin' on You, and he told Complex that he made the beat the day Left Eye died, after hearing the song on the radio being played as part of a tribute mix. In Just Blaze's words, this re-solidified him and Jay's relationship, and Jay was really high on this song. In late October of 2002, Cameron would co-star in the movie Paid in Full alongside Mekhi Phifer and Wood Harris. Here's a clip of Cameron talking about the movie.
You got a new movie coming out called Paid in Full, directed by Dame Dash. Can you tell us about the role you play in it in the movie?
I play a dude called Rico. It's like he's really Alpo. You know, it's based on These 3 dudes from Harlem, teenagers that was getting like millions on the hustling side of things. So it's like I'm like Old Dog 2002. You know what I'm saying? If you ever see Men's to Society, I play like the wild, crazy villain in there. You know, it's directed. Dame ain't direct that. Roc-A-Fella produced it. Dame directed a joint called Paper Soldier.
The budget for the movie was about $7.5 million, but the film only brought in about $3 million in the box office. Despite this, though, this movie, like I said earlier, is one of my favorite movies of all time. And Cameron did the dang in that movie. I'm not even gonna lie, he did the dang in that movie. But the soundtrack was released the same day as the film was released, and it was a double disc soundtrack. The first disc was a collection of old school hip hop and R&B songs, while the second was a collection of new songs recorded by Roc-A-Fella. One of my favorite songs on the second disc is Champions with Dame Dash, Kanye West, Twista, Cameron, Beanie Siegel, and Young Chris. Not only is the song hilarious with Dame Dash at the beginning, boasting about how his team is the best and how he can't rap.
My fault, y'all.
That, in fact, his producer, who was Kanye West, could rap better than most rappers. Dame actually picked the sample. He originally wanted to have Just Blaze do the beat, but there was a miscommunication about how quickly Dame wanted the beat made, and the production duties fell to Kanye. Glad it did, because the song is just fire. And Cameron's verse is just, complete fire. In fact, everybody killed it on the song. Like, who am I kidding? Even Beanie with his short verse killed it. But the other track that I want to talk about on this album is I Am Dame Dash. And it starts with another Dame Dash intro. And the producer of the track, Just Blaze, said that this track was supposed to be the outro to Freeway's album, Philadelphia Freeway. But it never got finished. The last track I'm going to talk about is One for Petey Crack. I mentioned a little bit about the background for that track earlier, with Cameron's verse being deleted and all that. But man, like, I really mess with Petey Crack. Matt goes, ring boy. Like, that part just gets me every time, like, I swear. But all in all, this will conclude this episode in the series. I felt like it was necessary to stretch this series to 4 episodes because it's just too much that happened in the span of 5 years that people consider their prime. Heck, this video is only about 3 years of it, and it's already.
All right, we're gonna stop it right here. Like I said, I do apologize. I thought I was gonna have the energy to watch all 4 episodes, but as you guys know, I'm starting to doze off a little bit. I do apologize. So we may continue part 3 and part 4 tomorrow. Oh, but yeah. This was actually pretty cool. I'm kind of learning a lot of the whole backstory with Roc-A-Fella, where it reached this, where it was slowly started to become a slow burner. Then it reached at the top of their game, and then the next 2 episodes is where the fall of Roc-A-Fella really went downhill, and where things went wrong between Jay-Z and Dame Dash. So we're gonna go ahead and end the live stream right here. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification as well. Also follow me on my social media platforms above. Join the Discord as well. Leaving a link in the description down below. So without further ado, I'll see y'all tomorrow for part 3 and part 4. Deuces.